Welcome to the Black Box Act podcast. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the diversity recruitment firm East Coast Executives and founder of the Black Box app. Black Box is a career consciousness portal designed to support the careers of Black men, and we use this podcast as a way of amplifying the voices of Black men that we meet and see out here doing amazing things, which is why today I have Iquan Worthington on the show. Iquan, welcome to the Black Box App podcast, my friend.
Hey man, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Man, we're excited to have you, man. Like I said, in a prior conversation, I had the opportunity to kind of look at some of the things you're doing from afar. And I just admire the fact that you're the founder of the Artoholiks. You are the founder and creator of a co-working space to support creatives and independence. I think that's amazing. And man, you're a father, man. You're 3 sons, am I right?
Yeah, I have 3 boys. Yep.
It's really interesting. That's a whole nother story that maybe we'll touch a little bit on. But my last guest had 3 girls.
Oh wow, yeah. So I'm sure we'll have a great conversation together about the juxtaposition of that.
For sure. All right, well, listen, if you can, let our audience know a little more about you, kind of what the Artoholiks is all about. Let's talk about, the co-working space, the things that you're doing, why that happened. Let's just dive in.
Okay, so as my wife would say, I'll give you all a speed dating run through this because it's a 20-year journey. And I've seen a lot, learned a lot, failed a lot, won a lot. So I'll try my best to, get it all within, our conversation. But I'm born and raised in Newark, New Jersey. Me and my best friend both went to Montclair State University. And at that time, one of our closest friends went down to Rutgers University, where he met a third partner of ours at Rutgers who was studying graphic design and marketing. He matched us together, and 5 years later, myself and the guy that I was connected with at Rutgers formed the Artoholiks and ran away with it. Initially, through the start, we did flyers, advertisements for local restaurants, local businesses, promoters, party promoters. So we were doing a lot of like party flyers back in the early 2000s. Then we segued into branding. We started to learn a little bit more about what we wanted to do with the business and what we wanted to be known for. At that time, we were doing a little bit of web work. We were doing logos and then a bunch of other marketing materials. And we thought to ourselves, how can we make our work look more like the brands that we wear, that we admire? And that's when we learned to start cleaning up our approach, cleaning up our look. And we formed a marketing and branding company, again, titled The Artoholiks, where we wanted to take each client and do all of their work and sit with them one-on-one on helping them build their business. In that process, we didn't know anything about the business part. We were just talented guys that knew how to make things look good. So we, ventured off and started infiltrating different agencies and career paths. He worked at the Brooklyn Nets for a while. I worked at a bunch of small agencies, and that's where we learned things like process, how to charge, because there was one point where we had 100 clients, but wasn't making no money because we were charging too cheap. We didn't know what our ideal client looked like. We was just saying yes to everything, happy to get work. So you fast forward to about 2013, 2014, with the experience that we gained from, working at other places, we said, all right, let's do this. We then put, all 4 feet in and said, let's get a studio. We got a studio. And we started with one client, which is Scotch Porter at the time, that was paying as a retainer. And we, just challenged ourselves to think about, what does 5 retainers look like? What does 10 retainers look like? By 2016, we had got to a place where we had more work than we could handle. And then we started, hiring young talent to come in and help us with these retainers. Then in about 2019, right before the pandemic, we had 2 of our biggest clients paying us our biggest retainers, both just driving the studio, making everything work. And then we got hit with the pandemic. Right after the pandemic, my partner that I speak about, him and his wife decided to have more kids. Our third key player decided to have kids. And before you know it, I have a big studio all to myself, which then gave me the idea of renting it out. And that's how the co-working space came into play.
Wow, that's amazing. So you were able to turn that potentially negative situation into a positive by being very forward thinking in that. I can appreciate that. All right, help me out here. Was that always the plan? Like if we go back to you guys being at Montclair State and the other partner being at Rutgers, and when you decide, hey, let's form a collective where we're doing this work and kind of branding ourselves through, but really doing business, was the plan always to, all right, go back inside somewhere, learn some more, and then come back out and read?
Yes.
Wow, that's beautiful. So
Yes.
did you ever see anybody that you thought was like within the collective where you like, okay, they're wavering? Like I'm just thinking, I'm like, wow, the Brooklyn Nets, right? Probably a pretty good opportunity, and people just like
Yes.
down sometimes.
So it wasn't. I'll be lying to say that he took that job and said, "All right, in 3 years, I'm leaving and I'm coming back." It just so happened that we just kept every couple of years we would find ourselves coming back to each other. But while having these jobs, we were also simultaneously building our business as well, taking on projects whenever we could. So it just happened. It was just like a thing where we just could not separate, and we would just keep getting work even when we wasn't looking for it.
I love it. Now, in all transparency, you know, when I started my business 22 years ago, actually, September 3rd, you know, one of the reasons I started the business was because my daughter was, I had to be able to take care of her, watch her, do things, pick her up from school. And I couldn't find a traditional 9-to-5 situation that allowed that
Right.
type of flexibility. Did that come into play in your decision making at all?
That's me. Just always felt like I needed some bit of control over what I was doing. I drive myself crazy still to this day because I'm a jack of all trades. Maybe if you mix some of the things that I'm really good at together, I could be a master of that, but I'm really not a master of one, just because I like to dibble and dabble in a bunch of other things. There was the last agency that I worked at, the founder of that agency went on to work for a big global brand, and he tried to bring me with him. And I told him exactly what I wanted to do at that brand, which is ironic. I told him I wanted to do content creation. I didn't want to do anything else. I didn't want to work on websites no more. I didn't want to do regular junior designer work. I wanted to create content and tell stories. And at that time, he said, "That's not a real thing. I can't hire you for that." And now look at the world. You know, we're in a world of content.
I wanted to speak to you about that. You took me right where I wanted to go, so I appreciate it. So you were speaking about kind of the work you guys were doing 20 years ago, party flyers, you know, some general business stuff for clients. So what's the biggest thing that you've seen in your industry current, like that's changed over that period of time? Like what's the thing where you're like, wow, who would have ever thought that wouldn't exist and this would be the thing? Is it social media?
It is social media. It's also the amount of content you have to create. So back then, a party promoter could really get off his or her event with one flyer. Now you need to come up with 3 versions of that flyer. It need to move. It need to have some music. You know, you got to take it and put it on multiple platforms, which then mean you have to resize it. So for agencies, luckily, we can make more money because you're using up more of our time for this versus before it was just like, you know, a 1 or 2 hour project to create that flyer and move on. So it kind of helps the agency because, you know, folks who need content need more assets.
Yeah, you know, I guess I didn't look at it like that, but I just see the things that we have to do here at East Coast Executives in that black box, and we're just trying to man it through, right?
Yeah.
But it's a lot because you're creating content. The voice is different, on different platforms, to my understanding.
Right.
So you agree with that?
Yes, I do agree with that. Like this podcast alone, like this interview could be chopped up and used so many different ways. You got to think about TikTok. How does it work on TikTok versus how do it work on Instagram, and then throwing it on YouTube and then wherever else.
So I was looking at some of your social, and you described yourself as, let me get this right, an avid doodler, right?
Yes.
So is there a work that you're the proudest of, like something you doodled where you're like, hey, you know what, man, I created this, and or is there something that you were doodling and you turned it into something else that gave you inspiration for something else?
Yes. So funny enough, when we're converting the design studio into a co-working place, I drew a lot in the studio on the walls.
Okay.
And just told stories on and on. I'll send you a video so that you can insert it here. But our bathroom is full of drawings and doodles.
Wow.
And that led me to think about the branding of the co-working space, right? Here's an opportunity for me. I spend so much time designing for everyone else and considering the backstory of everyone else's brand. So when we created office hours, it gave me the opportunity to say, hey, this is something that I could own. This is something that could represent, my best skill set, which is doodling. And so you'll see within the office hour branding a bunch of doodles. So from drawing in the bathroom, you can now see it on our website. You can see it via social, a bunch of illustrations and doodles.
I love it. I keep telling a friend of mine here in Harlem that we got to get over there and support your co-working space. I shared that with your partner in that process, right? So if you don't mind, help me out here, right? For the listeners that may not be familiar with what a co-working space is, can you just kind of talk to them about what that is and what you guys offer at yours?
Awesome. Yeah. So one of the things I really love about co-working, what make co-working pop, I think everyone know about WeWork, right? But WeWork is very, very enterprise driven. While they make it seem like you could come there and grab a coffee and play games, it's really for businesses to have a place to go to. Office hours, the name of our co-working space, is a little bit more driven to the individual. One, because we do have a small space, but the space is designed to give you that upper level of working at home or that upper level of working at Starbucks. And what I mean by that is you have the comfort, you have the warmth, but then you get a ton of culture that you may have in your own home. However, you're at a desk in an office. And then the difference between us and a Starbucks or a coffee shop is that you could get the essence of being in a communal place, but it still feel a little bit more private and more space to yourself without the loud interruptions and so on and so forth. What we offer is we have 20 desks here. We have what we call VIP desks, which have big monitors for folks like myself who need more space to design. We have 3 private rooms where you can, reserve and lock in for recording a podcast or having a Zoom meeting or bringing in, colleagues or potential clients for a business meeting. We also have one room in which I'm sitting in today, which is a flex, where if you're not recording a Zoom, you can record a podcast or create some content in it. So, and then we also have 2 break rooms full of snacks, free water, coffee, and so on and so forth.
Hey, Iquan, you talking about we got a small space. You naming all of these rooms. I'm like, that doesn't sound that small to me. I can't wait to go over, man, to spend some time over there and working and supporting you. You guys appear to be creating a community. I saw something recently. You were doing like a movie night, am I correct?
Yeah, so that just kicked off last week, a movie night every Tuesday night where folks from the community here in Union or even, no matter where you're from, you just come and kick it. The movies will be themed around marketing, design, arts, tech, so that afterwards we can have a discussion on how did that movie spark an idea? How did that movie make you feel? What you have done differently. So on a high level, it could be networking, but on a low and chill level, it's just something to do after work to relax, but not necessarily be on your own or go straight home.
Man, I love it. It sounds like a great environment and event to spark creative thoughts. So kudos on that. All right, look, let's kind of get down to it. So, I know you've worked the agency side. I know you're a stellar entrepreneur, but if you're giving advice, because we're in the Black Box ecosystem, we're out at colleges, we're out at other places, and we're meeting young men, we're meeting people at different levels in their career. What advice do you have to individuals that are pretty much entry level in their career, that are in your industry?
That are in my industry. So a big part of it is research. So if you go back and think about what I said about my partner and I going and infiltrating other places, one thing that I learned that stick out like a sore thumb is we wanted to be agency owners, had no idea how to run an agency. So what you do is you go and work at an agency to see how it's run and how it's managed. We also learned that some of our bigger and better and favorite agencies, the owners had worked at other big agencies, worked on clients, big clients, and then when they started their own agency, they were bringing those clients with them. So if I went to your website and saw, hey, Kenneth got Nike on his roster, he got McDonald's on his roster, he have all these big brands on his roster. How did he do that? How is he going out? The immature version of us is thinking like, oh, he just kept cold emailing them and figured something out. But what it really was, you made that connection through your previous work. So for entrepreneurs, sometimes I think we all mess up by saying, oh, I can go do it all on my own. When sometimes I think infiltration, going out and creating, getting that information by working in other spaces like yours will help. So for an example, if you want to start a candle business, go work at a few candle shops and learn first from the people who have already went through the dirt.
People often view that as somewhat, I've heard people say, oh, that's kind of backhanded and things of that nature. Listen, I had to do the same thing, right? And as you're competing for business no matter what. So I have to deliver in order to keep that client, right? So it's free for all. And we're here to compete and we're here to earn business. And I think that's the important piece of that. So I can admire that. Now, if people are mid-level, so let's just say they got the entry-level opportunity, they've worked 3 years at a particular agency, what should be on their radar? What should they be looking at on the horizon saying, okay, I need to position myself to get here, and what should they be doing to ensure that indeed does happen?
I think what really matters, and I think where a lot of people mess up sometimes too, is you're so happy to get the job, you're so happy to make the money and get the opportunity that you really don't think much about who or where you want to be in the next 5 to 10 years. So knowing your career path, do you want to be a creative director? Do you want to be an art director? Or are you content with just being like, excuse my French, a kick-ass videographer, right? So there's people who I know make a lot of money just being a videographer. They don't have to worry about being any kind of director or leading any kind of team. They just get their work, they do their work, and then they go home. So I think to answer that question, one is knowing what your career path is. What do you want to be? Do you want to own an agency? Do you want to be a president at an agency or a corporation? Do you want to lead teams? And if you do, if the answer is yes to all of that, then start, getting some mentorship around people who are leaders and who are directors.
I don't know if we've ever had that answer, and I think it's a great one because sometimes the promotion comes with you losing that individual contributor tag, right? So that promotion might come with some people, right? And everybody doesn't want to do that. Everybody doesn't want to lead.
Yes, I think we all make the mistake by thinking everyone have the same career path. Yeah. And then I would admit, sometimes there was times that I didn't know up until I felt something. It could have been a time where I felt marginalized, or a time that I felt like, hey, you have me way too high up here and I'm really down here. Everyone think creatives are superheroes, right? And you're getting me to do everything when I really want to hone in on this one thing. So knowing exactly who you want be and how you want to show up can make you the better version of yourself at work.
You know, this is kind of an in between, and I don't want to call it a filler question because I think it's really important. So, as a creative internally, if you're in-house somewhere at an agency or at an organization, how important is it to kind of be able to be, because the relationships are probably coming to you. Everybody probably wants you to work on their project for their department.
Right.
So how's that work? Is that a real stressful environment, or is there a way to manage that top down?
It is a real stressful. It is real stressful because, again, a lot of folks who request things, they don't know what go into it. You know, so I'll give you one example. I worked on a pitch deck not too long ago, and I got a lot of great praise for the pitch deck. They said, "This deck is amazing. How did you do it this fast? And why didn't you do one for me?" And the person who I worked with on the deck had already put the information in. I didn't have to go look for anything. This person understood the vision and set me up to just go in and make everything that he did better.
Okay.
Whereas though some people would say, here's the pitch deck, they'll only give you words, but no vision or anything. So I'm giving that example to say, again, people think that creatives are superheroes and they could do things with a snap of the finger, when in reality, sometimes we want to sleep on it for a couple of days. We want to process it. We have our own process. We have our own way of researching and thinking about certain things. So yes, it can be stressful if you have a whole team coming at you for different things when they don't understand your process.
So I've been encouraged by a few people close to me to embrace my creative spirit, right? I was quick to tell people, hey, I'm not the creative type. It's because I come from a house, my mother can draw, right? Like literally looks at something and can show it to you, right? And that used to amaze me because I can't even, well, they say I write like a doctor, right? Like it's nothing, I can draw a stick figure right now. But in this new world of creativity where it's kind of pulling some things together in some cases, right? I think I'm pretty good at that. So it's allowed me to embrace it a little more and kind of look at things. I think sometimes I have a view of things and can say, all right, you know what, I want it to look like this, and I'm pretty good at describing it and explaining it. But I think it's a talent, man, that many people often take for granted, and they think that, like you said, that they can just hand it to you and then you go make it look amazing overnight. And sometimes you have to sit and get the idea to formulate in your head.
Right. Yeah. And again, I think in some cases, like I'm far from a person who wants to design a presentation deck, right? So even with that, if I'm more pro web developer, pro designer, but I have the capabilities of doing all these other things, sometimes it can be a strain when you're taking me from over here to over here. I really need to recalibrate my thinking and think about putting myself in position to create something else. So people think that like an illustrator is capable of doing graphic design work, and that's just not true in most cases.
Got you. So once individuals are establishing their career and it's time to kind of look at the give back, right? Because it's so important for us as Black men to find ways to not only add value, but to lead, right? So I think it's important that you know, those of us that say, hey, you know, this is the career path that I'm on, and I know this is where I'm going to be, and I'm good at it, and I enjoy it. What are we supposed to do now once we come to that point to support and help individuals that may be coming behind us?
So I'll give you a great example of something I'm going through right now, right? I get so many people say, hey, Iquan, you go to cool places, you do great work, and you have so much going on. Why aren't you on social media more? And I'm like, because I don't need to, I'm too busy, and et cetera, et cetera. But then one person said, yeah, but you may be taking away the inspiration of a young kid that may need to see that. And I think that's it. Showing up and being able to let folks see what's capable of happening? What is the process? How does this work? Can you tell me what steps I should take on my journey? So I am gearing up to put out content to be able to help young folks, navigate this world.
Man, I can appreciate that, and hopefully, maybe in a future conversation, we'll find a way to partner, collaborate, and amplify on that level as well. Listen, before we get off, I want to ask you two things here, right?
Yep.
Anything that you're reading or have read in the past that you'd like to share with our audience that provided you with some inspiration?
So I'm not a big reader. I admit that.
Well, all right, even content.
Books, and
maybe,
I skim through them.
maybe something reviewed, yeah,
Yes.
like a movie.
So
right?
yeah. So there's a few podcasts that I love that I listen to every week. I'm an avid YouTuber as well. One for designers, one of my favorite YouTube and podcast series is by a creative called Chris Do. He do a bunch of workshops in his podcast that teach creatives how to think beyond creative. If the last episode I listened to, they talked about folks who have ADHD and how do you navigate that in your workspace. I'll send you the links to these.
Please.
I listen to some business podcasts. One of my favorites is How Success Happens. So they tell, the journey of entrepreneurs and, their journey from starting a business to reaching success. And then I listened to another one called Problem Solvers, where folks saw a problem in a particular area and created a business off of it and gained success.
Wow. Amazing.
Yes. So,
thank you so very much for sharing that information. That's good stuff.
No problem.
Yeah. So because you're busy, that podcast world probably works for you as you're on the run. You can still consume.
Yes. Yeah. It's great to listen to while working. Yeah.
Yeah, that was my other question. Like, can you listen and still create? Like, can you shut that off?
I can. I may miss out on things, but I never have no problem replaying things because I'm always working. Now, with music, I can't. So with music in the studio, you'll hear mostly instrumentals, soft tones, some jazz. I think the kids call it lo-fi music. That's what you'll hear more so in the studio. But I definitely sneak in podcasts.
Well, look, Iquan Worthington, we're really excited to have you on the podcast and grateful that you gave us your time. Please share with our audience how they can stay connected to you and your work in the co-working space, please.
Awesome. Thank you. It was a honor to be here. Excited to share this podcast and show my friends that I was on a really cool podcast.
Appreciate it.
But office hours is spelled office OURS. The play on the name is that my wife and I co-founded it, so it's our office. But it's also our office in terms of community. So it's officehours.co. You can find us on Instagram at Office Hours Co. Facebook Office Hours Co. And then you have the Artoholiks, which is spelled THEARTOHOLIKS. You can find that spelled just like that on all platforms. And then me personally, I'm Iquan W across all social platforms.